Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome along to this Microsoft Teams session, top tips for using Teams. It's really good to be here again. I'm really pleased to be able to run this presentation for you all, and hopefully there'll be something you can take away from this in terms of getting more out of Teams as a product. In terms of, first thing to start off with, let's just quickly go over a little bit of meeting etiquette. Obviously, we've all turned to Teams during this current lockdown to try and help us stay connected, stay in touch, and keep things moving. And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we've really had to think about doing online meetings from home or otherwise. And there's some kind of unwritten rules of online meetings that people just aren't aware of because they've never really come across them before. So this is just a couple of my top tips in terms of how to deal with meetings when you're online. So, first off, make sure you keep your microphone muted unless you intend to speak. The microphones that you use, obviously, I've got a headset here. It's very good at noise cancellation. So, if there's a lot of clatter and noise in the background, generally it doesn't get picked up. But if you're using the microphone that's built into your laptop, or maybe you've got a standalone desk microphone, they pick up all of the noise around you, which means if there is someone clattering about, or if you've got a very echoey room, it's going to pick up all of that noise. And if you leave your microphone unmuted, even when you're not speaking, it's going to cause a lot of distractions for people in the meetings. It's going to kind of take away their focus from the presenter. So first meeting etiquette tip, the unwritten one, always keep your microphone muted unless you intend to speak. Number two, be aware of whether your camera is actually on and also what's behind you. So I have had meetings so far where people have not been aware that their webcam is on and have potentially done things that they maybe would not have done if they were in front of other people or knew they were in front of other people. I won't go into the whats and whens, but I'm sure you can all use your imagination. But not just that, be aware of what's behind you, especially in a work context. What's on the walls behind you? Are you accidentally showing potentially confidential information to people in the meeting? You may have seen in Teams, there's the new background effects feature. So you can go and select from a load of different pre-made backgrounds to have, and you can also use custom ones as well. This will be coming out as a proper feature very soon, but for now there is a little workaround to put your own ones in there. And then thirdly, if you're in a meeting, make use of meeting chat to talk to others in the meeting. Obviously, if someone is presenting, but you still want to have a little conversation on the side, you can use meeting chat for that. And you can also use meeting chat for posting questions. It's a good way of getting them out of your head so you can focus on the content and not spend 5-10 minutes trying to remember what your question is so you don't forget it. So just a couple of little tips to help you guys get started with meetings. Now, in terms of today's agenda, I'm going to give you guys a quick introduction to me so you know who I am. We're going to have a quick 5 minutes looking at Teams as a collaboration tool, what it's actually meant for, where it fits into the bigger landscape, and also its growth over the last few years. I'm then going to give you guys a live demo. Always dangerous during one of these sessions, but we'll give it a go anyway. So we're going to go over Teams and channels and how to use those. We're going to have a little look at channel etiquette. So having conversations in Teams, using files and using the different tabs that are available to us. We'll have a little look at team management. How do you manage your team? What settings are available to you? And then we'll have a very brief look at chat activity and search some of the additional features that we also get in Teams. And then finally, I'm going to spend 5 minutes just looking at meeting creation. So how do you actually create a Teams meeting? What are your options for creating them? And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So fingers crossed I keep to time. I'm usually quite good at it, but that's what we're planning to go through today. So a little introduction. Who am I? My name's Dan Hudson. I'm a collaboration specialist working for Wessex Water. I've been with the company 11 years and I've kind of worked my way up into IT. So I started off in the call center, became a business analyst, and I did my time on the service desk, then became an application support consultant looking after enterprise applications. And now as a collaboration specialist, I look after the Office 365 suite, as well as our collaborative hardware and some of our other platforms as well, backing those systems up. Lead consultant for Office 365 and collaborative technologies. And I'm also a 365 certified Teams administrator associate. So I've kind of done the exam, got my certificate. I know a fair bit about Teams, not everything. I'm by no means an expert, but you're in safe hands today for this session. So let's talk very quickly about Teams as a collaboration tool. How does it actually fit into the bigger landscape? So what we're going to discuss here very briefly is how teamwork is supposed to work in Office 365. Obviously, if you're using other suites here, it might not necessarily apply, but certainly in terms of the Office 365 world, there's many different tools that we can use to actually communicate and work together. So the one that I'm sure you're all familiar with is email. Email's been around for 30 years now. It's simple and reliable. We all know how it works. And email is very good for very specific things. So as it says on the slide here, it's very good for pervasive availability. Everyone has email. It doesn't matter if it's night or day, if they're halfway across the world, if they're on leave, on holiday, off ill. You can always email someone. You can always send them an email and get information out to them. And for that reason, it's very good at targeted communications. If you just need to get certain information to certain people, it's great at pushing that out. And of course, we use Outlook as a client to manage our time, and we book meetings in there. But the way that we work together has changed over the last 10 or so years. We've moved from a very hierarchical, siloed structure of working to a far more collaborative culture where we are not just working in the teams that we sit within an organization, but we're now working with people in other teams, other departments, other offices, and even other organizations entirely. The problem with that, with email in that kind of circumstance, is that it was never designed for those kind of scenarios. So let's think about this. Let's say we have a project team and we've got people from all across the organization helping to deliver this project, and you need to get some information out to them. So obviously you just pull up an email, you stick maybe 5 people in the to line and 5 people in the CC line, and you write out your information, you send out that email. So for a start, you've not just sent one email, you've actually just sent 10 because every person receives a copy of it. The issue is when someone then needs to add something onto that, they hit the reply to all button. And this is the big problem that we found with email in the last 10 years. We're not using it to send information anymore. We're using it to have conversations, and we're using reply to all to facilitate that. But it was never what it was really designed for. So someone hits reply to all and a load of emails get sent back, and then someone else does it and someone else does it. And we end up with these emails flying back and forth, having a conversation over email. It's a very disjointed experience doing it that way, because then 2 people will hit reply to all at the same time. Now we've got 2 different emails. Which one do we reply to? Which one do we kind of forget about? And then what if you've been CC'd into that email conversation, but it's got nothing to do with you? How do you take yourself out of that conversation? You can't really do it. So instead, your email inbox just fills up and fills up, and you're reading all these emails and having to delete them, and it's just a real pain to sort out. So email as a tool, it's great for specific things, but not for what we're doing these days. So yeah, email is a very simple tool for communication, but it's not really designed for what we're doing these days in terms of modern collaboration and in terms of the conversations that we're having. So a few years back, Microsoft bought Yammer, and they brought it into their suite as an enterprise social network. The point of Yammer is to cover what Microsoft referred to as the outer loop. So this is connecting across your organization. This is having shared communities of shared ideas and shared subject matters where you can share your ideas and opinions, you can solicit advice from others, and you can broadcast your successes. It's all about you and your team connecting with everyone else in your organization. But what we've really been missing up till recently is the inner loop. How do we communicate effectively with the people around us that we work with regularly? Not just our hierarchical teams, but our project-based teams and also our ad hoc teams. What if you're part of a steering group or a design authority or some kind of board? How do you bring those people together in order to collaborate effectively? How are you running your meetings? How do you communicate with your teams? And what are you doing about your projects and your task management? And Teams helps to bring all of that together. Now, this is all backed up by SharePoint and Stream in terms of our document management and our video storage and video management as well. But the ultimate aim here is that what we're trying to do is take our conversational email, the stuff that you use reply to all for, and move that into Teams, a system that was designed to handle that kind of communication. And latterly, we're also taking our instant messaging and our meetings away from Skype for Business, and we're moving that into Teams as well. So we're kind of unifying that collaborative communication into a single platform. And that's where Teams fits in to our daily kind of communication and teamwork. Now, it will probably come as no surprise to learn that because of the way organizations have changed and the efficiencies they found working this way, that there has been an exponential growth in collaboration over the last few years. So this is a graph that just compares the daily active users of Slack and Teams, Slack being one of Microsoft's key kind of competitors in this field. So let's say this is just showing the daily active users, and you can see here in November 2016 when Teams entered public preview, and then a few months later went into general availability. Now this goes up to July 2018 at the moment, and you can see at this point here that I've circled, this was when Microsoft announced they were going to retire Skype for Business and replace it with Microsoft Teams. And from this point forward, the growth of Teams has just been exponential. And for the last few months, it's been crazy. So at the start of the COVID-19 lockdown in the UK, this was now 6 weeks ago, Teams, they had around about 32 million daily active users, which was already quite incredible growth. 1 week later, they had 45 million daily active users. 4 weeks after that, they announced they had 75 million daily active users. They're probably going to pass the 100 million mark in a couple of weeks. This lockdown, the situation that we all find ourselves in, has really accelerated the rollout of Teams. And a lot of companies that I'm talking to, especially in the water industry, are having to roll out this entire piece of software in a matter of weeks, whereas normally this would take you months and months to prepare and plan and pilot. So really, this has been a massive catalyst for change across all industries in terms of the way that we actually work and collaborate together. So enough talking about that. Let's actually have a look at Teams. Let's dive into a little demo now. So Sella's going to give you guys a little overview of Teams and how it works. So first off, let's actually get you familiar with it. So on the left-hand side here, we have the app bar. So these are all the different areas within Teams that we can actually go and explore. So we have here activity, chat, Teams, calendar, calls, files, planner, and OneNote. And a little task app that we're testing at the moment. I should point out, by the way, that I am using a preview version of Teams, so some of the things that you may see in here might not be available to you at the moment, but they are being worked on. You'll have them soon. Now, today, I'm only going to show you guys the Teams, the chat, and the activity area. These are the three that you'll use most often in Teams, so these are the three that I will cover today. And we're going to start off in the Teams area. And down the left-hand side here, this is my Teams bar, and this shows me all the different teams that I am a member of. So we're going to be using my demo team here today. And underneath my demo team, you'll see a load of different channels. Now, by default, every team gets a general channel, and you can create up to 200 additional channels for your team. Now, the point of the channels is to kind of separate out the different work streams that you might be working on or the different topics of conversation in a similar way that you might create folders underneath your email inbox to kind of organize your emails. You create channels to organize your conversations. So if you're going to have a conversation around a particular subject and you can't find a channel for it to exist in, so you're just going to pop it into general, you might want to think about creating a channel for that topic. It just helps to keep things separated and keep them organized. Now you'll notice next to some of my channels, I've got a little padlock here. These are private channels, and you can create 20 private channels within each team. The point of the private channel is to give a subset of your team members a private area to have conversations and share files. So a good example of why you might want to use this is, let's say that this team is a project team. You've got 50 members of this team helping to deliver a particular project, but only maybe 3 or 4 of you really need to discuss the project finances. So you could take that conversation back to email again. You could have that conversation out in public where everyone can see it. But really what you might want to do is create a private channel for finances and only invite those 3 or 4 people into that channel. That way you can talk freely about how you're going to fund the project and how the money is being spent without anyone else in the team even knowing that channel exists. A proper confidential area where you guys can discuss, but you can still keep everything together inside your one team. Now, I'm going to use this PIG demo channel here today, at least for a large part of this. And on the right-hand side here, this is our workspace. So I've just created this new channel. And you'll notice at the top, I've got 3 tabs. I've got Posts, Files, and Wiki. These are the 3 default tabs that will be created every time you create a new channel. And we're going to go through all 3 of those today. So we're going to start off here in the Posts area. Now, Posts is where you have your conversations. So every time that you think to yourself, oh, I'll just email my team. No. Instead, you're going to come into here and you're going to have a conversation in this Posts tab. Now, I should preface this by saying everything I'm about to show you guys is probably going to sound really obvious once I've shown it to you. There's a little bit of me teaching you to suck eggs. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of Teams. I kind of need to go through it from the beginning because there are some pitfalls that are very easy to fall into when using the Teams client. So to begin with, if we want to start a new conversation in Teams, well, it's fairly simple. We just click in this box at the bottom that says start a new conversation and we type something. So I'll just type hi everyone and I hit enter. And because I'm using a preview version, it does something different to what you guys will experience. So hitting enter doesn't work for me straight away. There we go. I hit enter. This starts a new conversation. And lo and behold, there we go. That's correct. So it starts a new conversation. It's posted in here. That's fantastic. Now, let's say I want to reply to this conversation. Let's say it was someone else who said hi and I want to reply to them. First mistake that everyone makes in Teams is that they will see this conversation here. They will want to reply to it. They'll see a text box at the bottom. They'll go, oh, that must be where I reply. So they'll click in here and they'll go, hi, Dan, and hit enter and send that. That's not a reply in Teams. What you've done is just started another new conversation. It's the equivalent of someone emailing you, and then rather than you hitting reply, you've actually just hit new email, which of course you'd never do it in Outlook. And you shouldn't do it in Teams either. Two reasons for that. The first one being that if you send a reply this way, they're not going to get a notification. How do they know that you've replied? Every time you hit reply and you send a reply to someone, Teams will send that person a notification to let them know you've replied. But doing it this way, they won't get that. And the second thing is that these conversations here, these individual conversation threads, the Teams client will organize these so that the most recent, or the one with the most recent activity, I should say, will always appear at the bottom of the list. What that means is that if you're having a big back and forth conversation with your team and everyone's just starting new conversations rather than replying each time, eventually when someone does reply to one of these threads, or maybe they react to them, which I'll show you in a second, it's going to take that chunk of the conversation and move it to the bottom. And suddenly everything's out of order and nothing makes sense anymore. So really important to ensure that if you mean to reply to someone, you click that reply button. Now, if you do make this mistake, it's absolutely fine. Good etiquette in Teams is always to clean up after yourself, recognize your mistakes and put them right. And the good news is there's some really quick tools in here that we can use to correct this. So first off, I'm just going to copy this text here to save some time. I'm going to click on the reply button and notice I get a reply text box in line with my conversation. I'll just paste in my text here to save some time. I'll click the send button and now I've replied to that person. They'll get a notification and it's all kept nicely into a single thread. But I've still got this extra conversation I need to get rid of. What's great, if I hover over this, I can click on the little three dots here, the more options, and I can select delete. And in doing so, it gets rid of that conversation. It cleans up the posts area. It keeps everything nice and tidy and organized. Now, you will have noticed as well, when I hover over any of these, not do I just get the more options, but I've got these reactions, which I briefly mentioned a second ago. If any of you guys use Facebook out there, this should be very familiar to you. But I can react to any of these conversations by liking it, hearting it. I can laugh, I can be surprised by it, I can be sad, or I can be angry. Now, this might seem really gimmicky to begin with when it comes to using an enterprise tool, but the reality is they're massive time savers in Teams. Let's say someone posts up a conversation starter saying, such is off on leave today. Can we all make sure we chip in and pick up the extra work? Now, I could write a reply to that just by going, okay, and that'll do. But that still takes time. I've got to type it out and they've got to read it. Wouldn't it just be easier if I saw that and went, oh, they need me to pick up the extra work? Okay, I'll just like it. Single click. They'll get a notification to let them know that I've reacted to that and what reaction I've given. But in that single click, I can convey so much information. I've read what you've posted. I agree with what you've posted. I've acknowledged it. Depending on what you're doing will give away a lot of context as to what you mean. And as I say, they can be massive time savers because you don't have to type a response to everything. A lot of those acknowledgement-based responses that you might do, like yes, no, okay, that's fine, I understand, all that kind of stuff, can all be conveyed with a simple reaction. Now, it's not to say every reaction works for every scenario. Of course, if someone writes such is off ill at the moment, you're not going to want to heart that. That'd be awful. I don't love the fact you're off ill. So just be aware of that. And there will be situations where you don't want to use reactions at all. But real quick time savers, if you're thinking about doing a reply, but it's just actually you're just going to say, okay, perhaps maybe you could like it instead. Now, when you are doing your conversations or your replies, especially, there is every chance that you're going to want to have these be quite long. As I said earlier, we're replacing conversational email with Teams. So what that will mean is that, if your replies are long, you're going to want to add paragraphs to them. Now, when I'm typing a reply, let's just pretend this gibberish here is my first paragraph. And I now want to go and add a second paragraph to this response. So I do what I always do. I hit the enter key and, oh, it sent it. That happens to you, it's fine. First advice is don't just keep following up with more replies going, oh, it's sent it. I'll just type out my second paragraph, hit enter, third paragraph, hit enter. In doing so, you're just adding more and more replies to the conversation. It's the equivalent, again, of hitting reply to an email, typing out your first paragraph, sending it, hit reply again, second paragraph, send it. And the people are just going to keep getting notification after notification. Instead, if you do send it too early, we'll hover over it again, we'll click on more options here and we'll go to edit. And now I've got my text box back, I can go back and edit my response. But I've still got the issue. How do I add more lines? How do I add my paragraphs? Well, two ways of doing it in Teams. The first way, hold the Shift key on your keyboard and press Enter. If I hold Shift and press Enter, you'll see that it adds new lines for me. I can now add my second paragraph, hold Shift, press Enter, and now I can add my third line. But there is a second way and a better way, the way I'd actually recommend for you all. And that is to click this little format button here, the little A with the pen. In doing so, it will expand out the compose box for me. I get all my formatting options available to me now as well. So I can make things bold and underlined. I can add bullet points and tables and all sorts. But now when I hit the enter key, it doesn't send it. It just adds new lines. So if you're like me with your little finger always kind of hovering over that enter button, you're always unsure if you're going to send something too early, hit that format button, just saves you that little bit of embarrassment of sending something too early. And now I can go in and format this as well. I can make that bold, I can add my bullet point, etc. And by going in and editing, now when I click the tick box, I have one concise response with all of my thoughts in there, one thing for someone to react to as well. It keeps everything nice and organized. So that's really useful. Now, I've got to remember where I am now. Yes, app mentioning. So one of the most important features in Teams. So yeah, if you guys remember nothing else about this session, please don't forget this one. One of the things you're going to rely on most in Teams is something called app mentioning. Now, if any of you guys use Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, you'll probably know this better as tagging. So it's where you type in an @ symbol and a person's name, and you can tag them in a post to basically notify them about it. And we use this in Teams as something called app mentioning as a way to either notify someone that we want them to look at something or we need them to do something. So Teams has a very passive way of communicating. All of these conversations I'm having here, the people in my team can see this, but it's not going to notify them about every single conversation that's going on. I could be a member of 30 plus teams with 100 plus channels. There could be all kinds of conversations going on. I can't possibly keep track of it all. And you're not supposed to in Teams. If someone needs you to look at something, they are supposed to app mention you and bring you into that conversation as an active participant. So how do we do this? Well, to begin with, I'm just going to start a new conversation down here. I'm going to type in an @ symbol, and you notice that it offers me a load of suggestions of people in my team. Now I can start typing in a name of someone, so I'll type in Simon here, and it will filter this down to all the Simons in my team. In this case, it's only Simon Day. Now I can either click on him as he appears here, or while he's highlighted in this kind of beigey grey, I can hit the tab key on my keyboard, and notice how his name now turns purple and it auto completes. If the name turns purple, you've correctly @ mentioned or tagged the person. If it doesn't, you need to do it again. But I can @ mention Simon here. I can go, hi Simon, doing a demo today. And I can hit enter. Now I've just posted that to the team channel. Anyone in the team can see this, but Simon specifically will have just got a notification from me in his Teams client going, oh, Dan's just @ mentioned you. He wants you to go have a look at this. Okay, now you can @ mention multiple people. So I can @ mention Simon again here. I could go and @ mention Matt. I could even @ mention Andrew, my boss. No relation, by the way. So, I can @ mention multiple people if I need to get multiple people's attention, or maybe I need to make the whole team aware of this post. What if maybe it's a health and safety notice that they need to be aware of? Well, a quick shortcut for you, if you type in @team, it will always offer you the team as a suggestion. I can click on that one here. It fills out the team name for me, and that way I can then notify the entire team in one go. A little word of advice on that one, or a little word of caution, I should say, use the @team mentioning sparingly. It can get very annoying very fast as every single new post just @ mentions the whole team, especially if you have a lot of people in the team, or if it doesn't actually concern the whole team, because all you're doing is distracting people from what they're trying to do, taking their attention away to read something that has nothing to do with them. And then we're straight back to the old issues with email of getting emails that have nothing to do with you that you can't take yourself out of. So you can see here, Simon's seen my notification. He's done a reply. He's even popped in this lovely little GIF for us as well. Who doesn't love pushing, hey? So that's @ mentioning. Now, one last thing to point out before we move on from here. When you start a new conversation, just like you can with a reply, you can click the format button. But when you do it in a new conversation, you get a couple of additional options down here that you really need to be aware of. The first one is the ability to add a subject. Now, if you guys are starting new conversations in Teams, my advice is always add a subject in the same way that you would with your emails. That way, it just highlights what that conversation is about. And when you're scrolling back up through all your past history of posts in a given channel, it just makes it really easy to see and to highlight what that conversation was actually about. It just makes it easier to find some of the older stuff. If you want to make a big song and dance about something, you can change it from a conversation to an announcement, perhaps. So I can change it down here from an announcement. I now get a nice big headline. I can really make this stand out. Someone's passed a certification, maybe, or you've got funding for a project, or it's someone's birthday. I can even change the colors over here. I can add a custom background image if I want to. There's loads of other options up here. I'll let you guys explore those and find those in your own time. But suffice to say, there's lots to explore and lots that you can do here to customize your messages the way that you want. So that's the posts area. It's where we have our conversations. We're taking those conversational emails, posting them into Teams instead, where all of our team can read them, but we can just mention the individuals that we need to do something or we need them to look at it. So we'll move on from here. Let's quickly look at the Files tab. Now, the Files tab in Teams is actually a SharePoint library. This is created when the team is created, and it sits in the background just managing all the files. So when you're actually having your conversations or you're giving a response to someone, you can attach documents either from your OneDrive if you have that, or from your computer, and it'll upload it into Teams. In doing so, it's actually putting it into a SharePoint library. Now I can come into the Files tab here. I can upload documents. I can just open this in the web browser to view it. There's various options. It's SharePoint. It's basic document management. The only key things to make you guys aware of is that this SharePoint library that sits behind this team is intrinsically linked to it. What that will mean is that if you're done with your team and you actually go and delete your team, it will delete this library and all of the files that are stored there. So just be aware of that. Now, every company will do things a little bit differently. Here at Wessex, what we've decided to do is to treat this Files tab as temporary storage because of the fact that the files here will be deleted if the team is deleted. And obviously, if it's a project, once you get to the end, you still need your team. What we've kind of said to our users is, look, treat this like temporary storage. If it's a throwaway document or something you definitely don't need to keep, that's fine. Pop it into here. It makes it really quick and easy for your team to access those files. But if you need to keep it permanently, put it into your proper SharePoint, like your project libraries or your functional libraries. So it's up to you how you treat this and the way your company will do that. But I say the real key thing to be aware of is that this SharePoint library, this Files tab, is linked to your team. So if your team is deleted, all the files here will be deleted with it. Now, the other default tab we get is the wiki. A wiki is just something that anyone can edit. So I'm sure you've all heard of Wikipedia. It's the online encyclopedia. You can literally just go on and start editing. You don't need an account. So every channel gets its own wiki, and this is just a single page where you can add text and images. Simple text editor, if you like. We use this a bit like a scrapbook, and that's kind of how I'd say to you guys to use it. You know, you can add in a load of text here. Maybe you want to keep track of your meeting agenda or a list of websites that's important to your project. Maybe you're always using the same email templates and just want to put them in here for easy copying and pasting for each person in your team. Whatever you want to use it for, it can be really useful. The only thing to be aware of is that this wiki is not versioned. What that will mean is that if I go and add a load of stuff to here, and then someone else in my team goes and deletes it all, it's gone. I can't revert it back to a previous version. So just be aware of that limitation as well. It's a basic text editor. Treat it very much, again, like temporary text storage or like a scrapbook, if you like. And if you don't want someone to delete something, it's probably worth highlighting in the title of that bit of text, do not delete, because otherwise people will go and delete it. It's just fairly typical of people. So those are the three default tabs that we get with our channels. But what's great about Teams is we can customize these tabs. We can add a load of our own. So I can click on the plus button here to add a tab, and we get a load of different options. Now, again, depending on how your organization has set this up, you may see more options, you may see less. Within Wessex, we limit this to just the Microsoft Office 365 apps, but this option here does have something like 500 or 600 different applications across all different things. So if you're using some external third-party apps and you want to link them in, you can do if your organization lets you. But some options here that might, catch your eye that you want to be aware of. First off, if you are using SharePoint for document management and you do have an existing SharePoint site for maybe your project or your team, you can go and add a tab for your document library. You can select this document library one, point it at your SharePoint library or your SharePoint site, and add that as a dedicated tab. We have options here for OneNote. So every single team that gets created will get a team OneNote notebook that you can use. So you can click on OneNote, and the top option will always be default team notebooks. You can go and add your team's notebook as a tab for quick access. We actually use that at Wessex for keeping things like meeting minutes, meeting agendas, or we actually use it as a bit of a knowledge base in my team in particular, for all of our coding and our PowerShell and stuff. You've got Planner down here. So if you're using Planner for your team task management, you can create new Planner boards here in order to manage those tasks. If you're using Power Apps, you can pin a Power App. You can pin any website you like. If you've got a particular website you use all the time, internal or external, if there's a load of websites you're going to, you can add a website tab and just pin that for quick access. And the point of these tabs is to make it quick and easy to jump around to different things that's relevant to your team. So I'll show you a bit of an example in my general tab here that I normally use for internal training. So I've got a load of different tabs along the top here. So let's say I'm in the middle of a meeting and I'm the one that's meant to be keeping the meeting minutes. Well, I can just click on my notebook tab here. I'll give it a second for it to load. And you can see it opens up OneNote for me, but it opens it up within Teams. So I can be here typing away, keeping track of all the meeting minutes. Then all of a sudden there's a meeting action to take. So I'll quickly pop over to my meeting actions. This is going to open up Planner for me. So this will open up my meeting actions planner board. And in here, I can then capture that task and add it in here and assign it to the person that it's relevant for. Perhaps then someone's like, oh, we need to pick up a document, or we need you to open up this document for us. Okay, I'll just go to my SharePoint library. This will go off to SharePoint. It will grab all of my recent documents. I can open it up from here as well. So these tabs allow you to quickly jump around loads of different things relevant to your team. And the key thing behind this is that you can access all of these without having to leave the Teams client. I don't have to open up separate applications. If I wanted to open up one of those Word documents, it won't open Word. It will open it in Teams for me. If I open up a website, it opens it in Teams. I'm not having to open separate web browsers. I can access all of these things without leaving where I am. And that's a really powerful feature of Teams that I quite enjoy. So that's kind of the basics of the Teams area and the different tabs that we have. The last thing that I just want to point out, which I said I would earlier, is just a little bit on team management. So just to be aware, again, your organization may do this slightly differently. At Wessex, we don't allow users to create teams. We do that for them. It may well be that your organization does let you create teams, in which case you can go to join or create a team at the bottom, create yourself a new team. You've got a place to work and collaborate together. But when you have your team, there's lots of different things you can do with it. Now, firstly, there's three different types of member of a team. You have owners, members, and guests. So owners are the administrators of your team. They are the people that have full control to the point that they can just go and delete the team. My advice to you is the same as it is to everyone. Always have at least 2 owners of every team. For that, the reason being that if one of you is off ill or on leave, the other one can take over administrative duties. If there's pending requests for new people to add to the team, or if you need to go and delete a controversial message that someone sent, or you need to amend some of the team settings, only owners can do that. So you just need to make sure you've got some backup on that front. And you can have as many owners as you like in a team. So we've got 3 here. Now, members are people that are part of your organization that are part of the team. So they're just regular members. They can access the channels and do everything that we've just seen. They just don't get any of the admin settings here. And then what's great about Teams is this guest thing. You can add external guests to your teams, again, assuming your organization has turned this feature on. So what this will mean is that I can invite people that I'm working with, whether they be consultants, contractors, anyone in other organizations, I can invite them into my team by their email address, and they can work in here with me. They can access my channels and the posts and that files tab and our planner boards and our OneNote. And it means that while I'm working internally with people, I can also then work with my external people in the same place. I don't have to email them while working on Teams with my internal people. So it just helps to bring everything together into one concise place. Now we have a load of different settings here as well. There's tons of stuff you can do to modify your team. First off, you can add a team picture. Always recommend you add a team picture. It brightens it up. It helps it stand out from the crowd as well. But there's loads of different things that you can turn on and off. And by default, most of these are turned on. So just be aware of that. If you don't want people doing certain things, you're probably going to want to turn them off. So as an example, if you don't want regular members of your team creating private channels that they might not invite you into as an owner, you might want to turn that off. Or if they keep messing around with the tabs at the top, or you don't want them to delete their messages, maybe for auditing reasons, again, you can turn all this kind of stuff off if you want to. Maybe they're abusing the team mentioning and you want to put a stop to it. Or maybe you're just not into the fun stuff like the Giphies and the memes and things. You can turn all that stuff off if you want to. So just be aware that your team settings are there. Make sure you review them if you are an owner of the team, and just be aware of what is available and what isn't within each of your teams. So that is the Teams area. We're going to quickly move on and start having a look at some of the other bits. I should pre-warn you that I haven't prepared anything in chat, so I don't know what it's going to open. I don't know what's coming up on screen. So forgive me if it's, it's private chat. I don't know what's in there. That's all I'll say. Let's see where we land. Oh, we're with Simon. Simon's fine. There's nothing rude in here. The easiest way for me to describe chat is this. It's Skype for Business. It's the chat function in Teams that replaces Skype for Business. So this is where we do our instant messaging, and this is where we can start off one-to-one calls just like you would in Skype. And also, it's loosely revolves around the meetings functionality in Teams as well. So you can see here I've got all my different chats on the left with all my different people, both internal and some external as well. I'm in this chat with Simon right now. You can see here my instant messaging window. I can send messages back and forth just like I could in Skype. And at the top right, I've got my call controls. I can start a video call, an audio call. I can share my screen, or I can even add more people to this conversation. But we get a couple of additional features in Teams that we never got in Skype, or at least depending on your setup, you never got them. The first one is full access to your conversation history. And yes, it used to save this to email, but it was never a particularly joined up experience. So I can just scroll up. And again, this is always dangerous with Simon, with anyone in my chat, actually. I don't know if I should admit that, but there we go. So I can just scroll up through here and it will just load up all of my past chat history with Simon. So I can just go up forever. There's thousands of pages of chat that I've got with him, I'm sure. And you can do this across all of your different contacts. Second one's the organization tab. So I can take someone in the organization, click the organization tab, and it will show me their chain of command. So if I'm trying to find a particular person or who they report to, the organization tab can help me out with that. But the third feature, and probably the most useful thing about chat in Teams, is Teams chat groups. I can create a little chat group of people. It kind of helps to replace the reliance on things like WhatsApp that maybe aren't GDPR compliant or don't have the proper security around them. And we can just have those kind of chat groups within Teams, and they're permanent chat groups. So I can click on new chat up here. I can add some people. So I'll add Simon again. Let's add Adrian Lau. So I've added a couple of people. If I click the drop down here, I can actually create a chat group proper and give it a name as well. So I will do that, and I'll give it a group name, awesome chat group. And now I'll send them a message. Hi all. This will add them to my awesome chat group, and now we've got a three-way chat. So just as easy as it is on WhatsApp to create a chat group, that's how easy it is to create it on Teams. And I can go and add more people into it. I can kick people out if I want to. I can leave the chat myself if I want to. So we do this for all sorts of reasons. It may well be that not only do you have a dedicated team for your team that you sit within, but you also have a chat group for your team. And that's exactly, again, how my team at Wessex do that. We use our Teams area for more formal stuff. It's our email replacement. We use chat as our more informal stuff, our Skype replacement. And that's a great way to think about which one should you be using. Well, would you email people about this? Then it should probably go into Teams. Would you send them an instant message about this? Well, then it should probably go into the chat area instead. So that's a great way of thinking about the difference between the two. But this is more kind of point in time, more instant stuff. The team stuff is more kind of daily workload and churning through it, and stuff that isn't necessarily quite so instant. But that's chat for you. And then activity. So I've got to be careful what I show in here, I suppose. No, I'm sure it's fine. The activity area is basically our notification feed. So again, if you use Facebook, you got your notifications feed. It just keeps track of every notification you have. You can click on them, it takes you there. Teams works the same way. I said to you earlier that every time someone mentions you, or if they reply to you, or if they react to you, or maybe they post in a channel that you've opted to follow for notifications, you'll get notifications for all of those, and they will appear here in activity. So when I open up Teams in the morning, I've got it open throughout the day, it's keeping track of everywhere that someone's replying to me or mentioning me or posting where I'm following. And I can then go and spend my time looking at the stuff that's important to me. And this is why it doesn't matter if you're a member of 30 or 40 teams with hundreds of channels with loads of conversations going on. The great thing about Teams is it gives you the flexibility while being able to focus. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that if for you to be aware of everything that's going on by email, you have to be CC'd in everything. So your inbox fills up with emails, and you're then spending half your time just reading through them and archiving them. With Teams, because you're a member of a team, you have access to all of the conversations in that team that are going on at any time. But if someone needs your attention, they should be mentioning you, and then you can spend your time focusing on that bit. So at any time you need to go back and read something, you've always got it available at your fingertips, but you can actually focus on the areas that you need to be focused on. No longer do you have to read through everything to be aware of the context of what's going on. You can just focus on the bits where they actually pull you in. So for that reason, it does offer that flexibility that things like email doesn't. But yeah, in terms of these notifications, I can just click on them. It takes me straight to where it's going on. So this is the current chat that we've got going on in here. I can click on this one from Simon. It takes me straight there. Notice how it highlights the post in yellow, the one that it actually notified me about. So that's a really useful thing as well. Now, the last thing just to point out is this search bar at the top. Search in Teams actually works. It's really fast and powerful, and it's fairly instant as well. Now, I can search for two things. I can search for both people, and I can search for keywords. So if I want to find a particular person, maybe I just want to send them an instant message, I can just type their name. So Laura, I'll pick on you. So I can type in Laura Mann here, see if I find Laura. If I click on her, it takes me straight to our instant chat with her, and I can just pick up wherever we got to. So that's nice and simple. The other option here is that I can search for a keyword. So if I go for Surface Hub in this case, select Surface Hub as a result, and instant results across all of my chats and channels. It shows me exactly where those keywords have been mentioned. Now, it may well be I'm trying to find a particular post, and the great thing, search has filter options. So I can say, well, you know what? I know it was definitely me that posted about it. I know it was in a channel, not a chat. And I know it was sometime this year that I posted it. So select this year, filter. And now it's filtered down all my results. And there it is, my roadmap update post. That's the one that I've been trying to find, from, 5 months ago. But just like that, I've been able to find it instantly. I can click on it, it'll take me straight there. And here's my roadmap update post that I can get to. Under NDA, so don't read any of that, please. Typically. It's always dangerous when I do demos. I need to get a proper demo environment, I'm sure. But anyway, that's really the basics of Teams in a nutshell. So obviously we use the Teams area to replace our conversational email. Those reply to all emails. We use chat to replace Skype for business. So our instant messaging and our just-in-time messaging to other people. Activity keeps track of all of our notifications, our replies, our app mentions, and any posts and channels that we opt to follow. And we have a really powerful search at the top that can find anything that we're looking for pretty much near instantly, which is really useful as well. Now, I did say I'd give you guys a quick demo on meeting creation and how we can actually create meetings. There's two ways we can do this. The first way is kind of the more traditional way using Outlook. So we can go into Outlook, select new meeting, and we can pop in our title for the meeting. So I'll call it PIG demo. We can put in all of our people that we're meeting with, for example, so Laura. And then to create this as a Teams meeting, we just click the Teams meeting button. Easy as that. We have a Teams meeting ready to go. That really is how simple it is to create a Teams meeting if you need one. So I can send this off to people. It doesn't matter if they're internal or external. Teams meetings just work. If you're sending it to someone who doesn't use Teams in their organization, doesn't matter. It works in a web browser. They can join it as a guest. If all they have is a mobile device, all they need to do is install the mobile Teams app. Again, they don't need to sign in. They don't need a license. It just works. Really, really great thing about Teams is how it is so easy to use in that matter. But the other way that we can do it is through the Teams client itself. So if I bring up the Teams client, the other bit I didn't show you is the calendar area. So we can go into calendar here and we can create new meetings in here. So I can select new meeting at the top to schedule a new meeting. And from here, we can go and add all our usual stuff the same way that we would in Outlook. So PIG demo as a title, I can add my required attendees. So I can add Laura here. Now you notice there's no option for Teams meeting. Well, that's because I'm creating it in Teams. Every meeting I create in here by default is a Teams meeting. But one of the things that's slightly different about doing it in here is that I can add a Teams channel to this meeting. So I can take it away from being a personal meeting that I book with specific people, and I can make this a channel meeting that exists within one of my Teams channels. The idea behind this is that I can say, right, I specifically need a couple of you to join this meeting, but I'm going to post it to my channel so that anyone else in that team that is interested in the meeting can still come along. So it's a slightly different way of thinking about it. Rather than being a personal meeting that I'm organizing with specific people, it's a meeting that I'm organizing with my team, but I need specific people to come along. Okay, slightly different way of thinking about doing meetings, but it does kind of work. So if I select my PIG demo channel here, just as an example, so this is a demo meeting, and I will hit send. So Laura's going to get this invite for this demo meeting that I've booked today at 1 o'clock, because I specifically said to her, I need you to come, so she'll get that. But notice that in the channel, it's posted my demo meeting here. So anyone in my team can come along to this meeting if they want to. And that's a really good way of creating more open meetings. And the great thing about doing it this way in Teams as well is any of the meeting chat, like you guys are using right now to ask questions, will all be posted as responses to this invite. So it means that you don't lose any of the meeting chat as well. It keeps it all together. So this is something that we started to experiment with Wessex. As I say, it's a very different way of thinking about how we actually have meetings. That opens it up a lot. And it's all about that open collaboration, that transparency across your team. You don't need to remember to invite every single person. You can just post it in the team and go, right, anyone wants to come can come. So that's a couple of ways we can do meetings in Teams. Now, one last thing I just want to point out before we get to Q&A. I just want to talk about sharing in Teams because it's slightly different to what we're used to in Skype, and a lot of people get very easily confused with this. So when you're in a meeting in Teams and you click that share icon, it opens up the share tray from the bottom, and you'll see a load of different options. Now, these options are organized into vertical columns. And you'll see here an example that I've got where we've got 4 different options available to us in terms of these columns. The first one is desktop, and this just shares everything on the particular screen that you pick. This is the way that most of us are used to screen sharing in a meeting or an online meeting. So traditionally, this is the way we did it in Skype. We select a particular screen. Whatever is on that screen is what gets shown. So this is what I'm doing right now as I'm flicking between Outlook and Teams and PowerPoint. Now, the second option here is window. This shares only that application that you pick. It doesn't matter which screen you put it on or what size it is. Now, this is the one that most people get confused about. They will almost always pick a window, not realize they've done it, and then everyone gets really confused when they start talking about something that's not on the screen. The reason for that is, let's say I picked this PowerPoint slide as a window, and then I dragged Teams over the top of it because I'm doing my Teams demo. You guys won't see the Teams application. You'll still be looking at the PowerPoint because I've told the system I only want you to show the PowerPoint no matter where it is or what I put over it. So if you have this experience in a Teams meeting where someone's talking about something on a web browser or in Teams and you're not seeing it, that's probably why. They've almost certainly selected something from the window column, not the desktop one. Now, if you're doing just a PowerPoint presentation and maybe you've got limited bandwidth or you're with a lot of people with limited bandwidth, one option here is the PowerPoint one, where you can actually upload a PowerPoint directly into Teams. This means that you only have to upload that file once. Everyone only has to download that file once. You're not doing a constant rolling screen share, which requires a lot of bandwidth throughout the whole thing. So if, like I say, if all you're doing is a PowerPoint, that's an option available to you as well. And then if it is a proper booked Teams meeting, you will have the whiteboard option. So you can start up a collaborative whiteboard, you can brainstorm, share ideas, or maybe you just want to break the ice with a bit of hangman at the beginning. You can do that with the whiteboard option as well. So a little bit about sharing. Always be aware of which option you're picking. It will determine what actually gets shown. So that's everything I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you guys have found it incredibly useful, and I hope you take away some tips on getting more out of Teams and understanding a little bit more about how it works.